It's me again. It's Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everybody, to those of you that celebrate, and I hope you're having a lovely holiday to those of you who don't. I'm going to read today from The Christmas Eve Ghost by Shirley Hughes. Once, in the old seaport city of Liverpool, when tramcars clanged up and down the main streets on iron tracks, there lived two children called Bronwyn and Dylan. They'd not lived there very long. Mum had brought them there from their village in Wales after their Da had died. Da had been killed in a mining accident when he was working deep underground. Bronwyn could just remember his strong arms and his smell of coal dust. But Dylan was too little to remember him at all. Mum earned a living for the three of them by doing other people's washing. There were no washing machines in those days, and it was very hard work. She did not have enough money to pay someone to look after Bronwyn and Dylan, so early in the morning, before it was light, she had to leave them while they were still asleep. She pushed the big old pram uphill to the better part of the city, where the well-off people lived, to collect their dirty washing. Mum hurried from house to house, delivering the clean washing and piling up the pram with dirty sheets and towels and shirts and pillowcases. Then she ran back as fast as she could, worrying and fretting all the way because she hated having to leave the children all alone in the house. But somehow she always managed to get back before they woke up, in time to make their breakfast porridge. As soon as she had washed up the breakfast things, Mum set to work. At the back of the house was a narrow room with a stone floor, called a wash house. In it were a sink, a wash tub, and a big iron mangle for wringing out the wet washing. I'm going to show you a picture because that's quite hard to imagine what that looked like. In the corner was a little brick fireplace with an iron door, and above it was a metal basin with a wooden lid. This was called a popper. In fact, it wasn't. It was called a copper. Bronwyn and Dylan watched as Mum lit the fire with sticks and newspaper and put bits of coal on top. Then she filled the basin with cold water from the sink tap and put the lid on. When the water was hot, Mum pushed the sheets and towels into the basin with soap flakes and began to boil them clean. Then she stood bent over her wash tub, rubbing and scrubbing at the smaller things with a bar of yellow soap, while the wash house filled up with steam. When all the things were properly clean, she rinsed them in the sink. After that, she wrung them through the big iron mangle. Now you need to find out what a mangle is. Sometimes Bronwyn and Dylan helped to turn the big wheel, which worked the rollers that squeezed the water out of the washing. It made them feel very big and strong, turning and turning that wheel for Mum. You had to be careful not to pinch your fingers in the rollers as the washing went through. The grey sudsy water drained into a big tub underneath. When that was done, Mum emptied the tub in the backyard. If the weather was fine, she carried all the washing outside in big baskets and pegged it out on the clothesline to dry. But if it rained, she dried it in the kitchen, draped over wooden frames called clothes horses, or raised up to the ceiling on a pulley. On those days, Bronwyn and Dylan ate their dinner among the wet sheets. Next came the ironing. There was no electricity in their house, so Mum heated up her flat iron over the kitchen stove. She had to take great care not to make it too hot in case it scorched the linen. That would have made a great disaster. When it was all finished and aired, she folded it beautifully and piled it neatly in the old pram, ready to push it back up the hill early the next morning. Mam was a big, sturdy woman, but she did get very tired and she hated the city dirt. In the evening, she was mostly too tired to do anything but sit in her chair and look into the fire, remembering the green valley where she'd lived as a child and wishing that they were all back there again. Sometimes she told Bronwyn and Dylan thrilling stories about dragons and hauntings and wicked devils with tails and ghosties which came down the chimney at night. On fine days, Bronwyn and Dylan hopped and skipped and played some great games with the other children on the street. On Saturday nights, they had a bath in a tin tub in front of the kitchen fire. And on Sundays, they put on their best clothes and went with Mum to sing hymns in chapel. In the house next to theirs lived Mr. and Mrs. O'Reilly and their two handsome sons. Mr. O'Reilly worked at the docks, unloading great bales of goods from the holds of ships which had come into the port from all over the world. The O'Reilly lads worked there too, alongside their dad. They set out with all the other men, tramp, tramp, tramping along the cobbled streets. In the bad time, there was no work for them, and no money either, and they had to stand idle on the street corner, whiling away the day as best they could. Mam never spoke to the O'Reillys, except to say, "Morning!" "We keep ourselves to ourselves," she told Bronwyn and Dylan, and that meant that they were not to speak to the O'Reillys either. Bronwyn thought it was very strange. There was nothing wrong with the O'Reillys as far as she could see. But of course she did as Mum told her. The O'Reillys did not go to chapel. They went to another church. Once Bronwyn had peeped in there and seen beautiful statues and coloured glass and candles all alight. She thought it looked lovely, much prettier than their plain chapel with its whitewashed walls. But when she asked Mum if she could go there one Sunday just for a change, Mum's face became very stern and serious. She told Bronwyn that the church was for a different sort of people, not their kind, and that she was never to look in there again.